Welcome to today's episode, where we'll explore Rebecca West's haunting 1918 novel, The Return of the Soldier, a powerful examination of memory, class, and the psychological impact of war. Our story takes place during World War I at Baldry Court, a wealthy English estate. We experience events through the eyes of Jenny, our narrator and cousin to Chris Baldry, the soldier of the title. Jenny lives at Baldry Court with Chris's wife Kitty, a beautiful but cold woman who's preserved their home as a shrine while Chris serves in France. Their carefully maintained world shatters when they receive an unexpected visitor, Margaret Gray, a middle-aged woman from a lower social class. She brings shocking news. Chris has been sent home from the war with shell shock and amnesia. But here's the twist. The last 15 years of his memory have been completely erased. In his mind, he's still 21 and deeply in love with Margaret, his first love from his working-class past. The psychological drama intensifies when Chris returns home. He doesn't recognize Kitty as his wife and shows no interest in their opulent lifestyle. Instead, he yearns for Margaret and the simplicity of his youth. For Chris, the last 15 years, including his marriage to Kitty, their dead son Oliver, and his transformation into a wealthy businessman, have vanished completely. We learn through Jenny's narration about Chris and Margaret's past romance, which ended when class differences and family interference drove them apart. Margaret has since married a shabby insurance salesman and lives in poverty, yet Chris's amnesia has restored their love to its pristine, youthful state. The novel's central conflict emerges. Should they try to cure Chris of his amnesia? On one side stands Kitty, desperately wanting her husband back. On the other is Margaret, who knows that healing Chris means losing him again. Jenny finds herself torn between loyalty to Kitty and her growing realization that Chris seems happier in his amnesiac state, free from the burden of war and social expectations. The story reaches its climax when Dr. Anderson arrives to treat Chris. He suggests that only by forcing Chris to confront his most painful memory, the death of his and Kitty's young son Oliver, can they restore his full memory. It falls to Margaret, the only person Chris trusts, to perform this cruel kindness. In the novel's devastating final scene, Margaret shows Chris Oliver's toys and speaks of his death. The shock brings Chris's memory flooding back, but at a terrible cost. The innocent happiness of his amnesia is destroyed, and he must return to the harsh realities of his present life, including his loveless marriage and the waiting horror of the war. West's novel, though brief, raises profound questions about happiness, memory, and authenticity. Is Chris better off remembering his proper social position and duties, or was he happier living in his amnesiac dream? The story suggests that sometimes forgetting might be more merciful than remembering, yet social obligations and reality ultimately demand that we face our truths, no matter how painful. Published in 1918, The Return of the Soldier was one of the first novels to deal with the psychological trauma of World War I, particularly shell shock, which we now know as PTSD. Through its exploration of memory, class divisions, and the cost of duty, West crafts a powerful critique of the social structures that send men to war and demand they return unchanged. The novel ends with Chris restored to his proper place in society, but leaves us questioning whether this healing is truly a victory or another kind of tragedy. Thank you for listening to today's summary. If you enjoyed this analysis, don't forget to subscribe for more literary deep dives.